Okay, so from finding out that 33% of Payday 3's profits are tied up until the sum of $40 million is paid, swiftly followed by Starbreeze's quarterly report saying that the game will be receiving significantly reduced investment going forward, topped off by the delay of the next piece of highly anticipated paid content until next year, well, it's been a crazy couple of days, hasn't it? I'm going to be splitting this video into 5 parts, and all of these parts will be timestamped in the description. But let's start off with the quarterly report. We're not going to go over absolutely everything said in this quarterly report, as a lot of it is specifically aimed at investors and doesn't particularly add to what we're going to be discussing. For example, do you really need me to show you spreadsheets highlighting that Starbreeze is in the red to know that the company isn't exactly in the best place right now? Instead, I want to specifically focus on a statement from Matt Yule, the CFO but acting CEO of Starbreeze, in which he says, "The level of investment during Payday 3's first year on the market, both through launched DLCs and Operation Medic Bag, has been at an elevated level. Ahead of year 2, we are confident in being able to continue delivering amounts of value to our players with a significantly lower level of investment." This is, of course, a worrying statement. Nobody wants to see Payday 3's level of investment reduce, especially when the game is still on the back foot. However, I don't just want to run with the narrative of Payday 3 is getting significantly lower investment. There is more to this statement. Operation Medic Bag contained a slew of unforeseen overhauls to major systems in the game during its first year, rebalancing the way progression works, reworking elements of the UI, and implementing a server browser, and even though Armor 2.0 is technically not part of Operation Medic Bag, the development of that system as well, alongside the promise of 4 DLC packs and free content within a year from launch, which is likely the only part of all of that was actually budgeted for. And let's not forget that the price tag on those were reduced. I think it's clear to see why Payday 3 received additional investment throughout its first year, and thus, now that Operation Medic Bag is coming to a close, it makes sense for the level of investment anticipated for year 2 to be significantly reduced. To clarify, I am by no means saying that I agree with this decision. In fact, quite the opposite, I vehemently disagree with it. While yes, Operation Medic Bag is ending, and more or less everything that it promised to bring to the game is now here, though the things that aren't here yet is a topic for a different video, the idea of pulling back investment now is ludicrous to me. I get it, wrapping up Operation Medic Bag undoubtedly frees up some resources, as we've just discussed, but why aren't those resources being funneled back into Payday 3? A game that, need I remind you, isn't anywhere close to being out of the woods yet. We're on the right track, as myself and every other content creator loves to say, but we will never reach our destination if we run out of fuel. The reason I felt it so necessary to explain the correlation between this reduced investment and the ending of Operation Medic Bag is because I really don't want this to be taken as bluntly as Starbreeze are reducing funding for Payday 3. I think it's important to remember that this reduction in investment comes as a result of Operation Medic Bag's end, and that makes it so much more likely that this reduction in investment was always coming, at least since Operation Medic Bag was first announced. This, to me, is not indicative of Starbreeze saying, hey, we're beginning to pump the brakes for Payday 3 as a whole. And please don't just take my word for it, I'd never ask that of you. This is pretty much how Matt Yule explains it as well.
You indicated that Payday 3 related investments will be lower moving forward. Could you share more details on this?
Yeah, we have a plan for year 2, as we call it now, for Payday 3. We will continue to release content and do updates to the game. But keep in mind that what we have done over the last 12 months with Operation Medic Bag, and as I showed on one of the slides, significant improvements to the game, that we will reduce the effort when it comes to actually doing an update to the game compared to Operation Medic Bag. But there will still be a lot of updates and content coming out. But in total, if you look on the full 12-month period that we are living now, of course, and looking forward, comparing that, then the investment level will be lower because we will not do Operation Medic Bag anymore. So that's natural. So the investment levels will be lower, but we will continue to invest.
There is one sentence in that response that I really don't like the phrasing of, and it's this one.
We will reduce the effort when it comes to actually doing an update to the game compared to Operation Medic Bag.
Saying they'll reduce the effort when it comes to updates is certainly setting off alarm bells in my head, though I'd like to hope that this is more of a slip of the tongue, if you will, due to an unscripted response. Of course, only time will tell if this was actually a Freudian slip. And unfortunately, that's pretty much all I have to say in regards to actually trying to calm down the fire that this quarterly report has ignited reignited. Operation Medic Bag was never part of the plan from day one, and therefore required more investment. Now that that period is coming to an end, a reduction in investment is to be expected. If only this report stopped there though. You see, it also mentions that Starbreeze are entering year 2 with a smaller team focused on continuously updating the game with new content. New content is great, a smaller team really isn't. A reduction in the number of people working on Payday 3 is the exact opposite of what should be happening right now, and unfortunately I was devastated to hear that some Starbreeze employees have been laid off. If you happen to be one of those people, I'm truly sorry for you. I can't believe any of what's happening with Payday 3 at the moment is even close to being your fault, and it's awful that you've had to feel the consequences of other people's actions in such a terrible way. Despite only being a Starbreeze partner for a short amount of time, every single person on the team that I've had the pleasure of interacting with so far has been an absolute gem. Currently, I'm only aware of a handful of layoffs, but I fear that there may be more, simply because I doubt the amount I'm aware of would constitute the CEO's message referring to this as a smaller team. I would have really loved some clarity as to whether or not this reduction in team size is also as a result of the Operation Medic Bag strike team being disbanded. Back in January, we were told that a team of veteran developers were assembled to lead Operation Medic Bag. As far as I recall, we were never told if these developers were already working on Payday 3, and if not, then these people returning to work on Starbreeze's other projects may make up the rest of this team reduction. While I still hate to see the team size reduced, I would much rather it be that the developers have returned to a different project over being laid off. I would still, honestly, really like to know if this is the case. But with Starbreeze reducing the level of investment Payday 3 will be receiving, as well as the number of people actively working on the game, that begs the question of where are all of these additional resources going? So I guess it's finally time I talk about Project Baxter. I'm still yet to bring up Project Baxter here on the channel, and while that's partly because I'm simply disinterested in the game, Dungeons and Dragons and the fantasy genre in general isn't really my cup of tea, but it's also because other content creators have already done an excellent job explaining why this game is such a threat to Payday 3. But now it's time for me to throw my hat into the ring as well, at least a little bit. I'm more than happy to make a separate video discussing everything that I have to say about Baxter at some point in the future, and if that sounds like something you'd be interested in, please let me know in the comment section down below, and while you're down there, consider clicking that subscribe button. But anyway, Baxter was never really going to be a game that appealed to me anyway. As I said, Dungeons and Dragons and the fantasy genre aren't really for me. Clearly though, the target audience for that genre does exist, with games like Baldur's Gate 3 winning Game of the Year awards. Baxter is seemingly going to be Starbreeze's attempt to make a somewhat Payday-inspired cooperative experience within that genre. But realistically, the quality associated with some of the games already existing within that space isn't really something I'm all too confident Starbreeze can actually put out right now. And on top of that, if Baxter becomes the game that kills Payday 3, then Starbreeze would have lost support from its existing audience. It honestly seems like whatever way you look at it right now, Baxter is already set up to be a failure, and unfortunately the direction we're heading in, it looks like it could very possibly take Payday down with it. Of course, that's assuming that the Payday IP even belongs to Starbreeze in 2026 when Baxter releases. Though let me clarify just very quickly that that was a tremendously overdramatic segue, but for those of you who may be unaware, this week Connor Sherry Shaw released a video titled Payday 3 Isn't Unique, Where We've Been. It is an excellent recap of the origins and history of Starbreeze as a company, and it specifically highlights one deal made between Starbreeze and 505 Games that entitles 505 to 33% of Payday 3's profits until $40 million has been recouped. Connor's video also identifies a potential deadline for this repayment as December 2024, and poses a potential scenario where the Payday IP could be forfeit. I had no idea about this deal until now, and I wish it was something I knew about earlier. The information was out there, I'm not trying to say there was an attempt to hide it, just that I didn't know about it. Connor makes sure to be extremely clear that the possibility of the IP being taken over is heavy speculation, something that I really appreciated them clarifying. It's so easy to spark a chain of misinformation, especially at the end of such a long, well-researched and well-put-together video. In fact, I'll commend them even further for putting together such a clear and concise list of sources. I wanted to fact-check certain things, and I was able to do that in mere minutes. At the end of the day though, without actually seeing the contract for ourselves, there's no way of knowing whether or not there are clauses to mitigate such action. I'd like to imagine that Starbreeze's legal team would have taken the necessary precautions to protect their IP, and And while I'd typically say, I guess we'll find out in December, I think that assumes the worst in 505 and their parent company Digital Brothers. So after a tremendously worrying quarterly report, the potential consequences of Project Baxter growing yet again, and a 3-hour documentary-style video highlighting what could quite literally be the deal that seals Payday's fate, it really can't get worse from here, can it? In what is either an impressively poorly timed blog post or an attempt to rip off multiple plasters at the same time, this week's blog post opens with the sentence, "No plan survives contact with reality," and goes on to explain that the upcoming paid character pack has been delayed until 2025, citing that the quality isn't where it should be as the reason for this delay. Recently, Almir has stated that his answer to the question, "When can we expect X, Y, or Z?" is always whenever it's ready, and as such, I can understand this delay, and in fact, dare I say it's probably for the best. I just hope that this isn't the beginning of us seeing content regularly delayed because it's not up to scratch. I understand and actually really support Almir's decision to not release another season pass, and I agree that committing to a certain amount of content within a specific window isn't always the healthiest direction to go. That said, I really hope that this isn't the reason that decision was made. Having the ability to delay content that isn't quite up to scratch yet is a fantastic tool to have in your arsenal, but I really hope that this isn't something we start to see happening very frequently. Regardless of how infrequently or frequently this happens, I think it is a massive shame that the first piece of paid content for Year 2 has been postponed. We can still expect the next free heist, which is likely to be First World Bank, to be releasing this year. The blog explains that the heist is in a good state and currently planned for a December release. If you're asking me, it would have been very nice to see an additional sentence there reading, "alongside the release of Armor 2.0, as I still don't know if it's actually been confirmed whether or not that's coming in December. We know that's what they were initially aiming for, but I don't know if we've heard much since. So, now that we've taken a look at everything that's been said over the last few days, let's take a crack at answering the question posed in the title of this video. Is this the beginning of the end for Payday 3? And I think the short answer is yeah, it very easily could be. Payday 3 has been slowly but steadily making decent progress, though if the game doesn't survive the next year, I reckon a fair chunk of this week's happenings will without a doubt be looked at as some of the first big punches to the gut that the game received on its way out. It's really unfortunate to think like this, and quite frankly I don't like entertaining this idea, but I can really see a narrative where Payday 3's swansong period was Boys in Blue through to Fear and Greed, and then that's the beginning of the end. That's where we are now. But I want to put a major focus on one word in particular that I said a few moments ago, and that is if. Because Starbreeze can come back from this. Show us that the reduced investment isn't actually going to affect the game too badly. Prove to us that you are able to continue delivering amounts of value with this significantly lower level of investment, and make us believe that Payday 3 really is still your primary focus. I've said this many a time in the past, the road to a better Payday 3 is a marathon and not a sprint, and that I will be here every step of the way, even if we don't make it to the finish line. This video has obviously been relatively negative, and I don't like being negative about Payday 3, as I'm sure you can tell by the fact that I started and ended with slightly more positive points. And I'm sure that there will be some people out there who let me know that my positivity isn't always appreciated, but I think this video gets across my honest thoughts on everything that's been said about or by Starbreeze in the last few days. Look, I really want Payday 3 to succeed, partly to avoid the slew of I told you so's that I can already feel heading my way, but also because I genuinely enjoy elements of the game and want to see it pick itself up, dust itself off, and crack on with a good few years of high quality post-launch support. And above all else, I'd honestly just really like to be a part of the Payday community during one of its high points. Yeah, I've been playing Payday for pretty much the last decade, but I hadn't really been active in the community until I started making content. I've often expressed just how much I really believe Payday 3 will make its way out of this dark period, and while I honestly still believe that will be the case, this week has been the first time that I've genuinely entertained the idea that there might be no light at the end of the tunnel. Of course, we are likely to get a December update, and hopefully we'll start to hear some more about that soon, but if you're interested in following this narrative about Payday 3's potential future more, there are 3 major upcoming events that will give us more information about this, hopefully. Firstly, Almir is hosting a a live stream on Tuesday in which he will do a reactionary Q&A of sorts to the information that's come out this week. Secondly, at some point within the next month or so, we'll be getting the 2024 annual report for us to look over, which hopefully might have some more details about that $40 million debt. And finally, well, I guess we'll have to wait until March to see if Plyon hang around. For now, you can click the video on screen if you're interested in learning some more about Payday 3's identity crisis and the possible direction the game might be going in the future. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.